Hey everyone, I'm Justin Janowski. Welcome to the Sales Strategies for Christian Coaches podcast. I'm excited to be with you. I started my Christian coaching business in December of 2018, just hoping to make it. I had internal self-doubt and externally I felt really overwhelmed with all the strategies in the marketplace. I was able to build a simplified plan for action though, and take massive action while surrendering to God again and again. And I collected over $250,000 in revenue my first year in business. Now I'm helping other Christian coaches develop their business plans, their high integrity sales strategies, and learn how to design their signature offers and remove any mindsets or resistances that have been built up over time that are sabotaging their success in business. I'm glad that you're here with me today. I want to talk about how to engage participants in group Zoom calls. This is something I have a lot of fun with and I'm pretty good at. And I want to give you, there's so many things you could do, right? But I want to give you 3 things that I think are really easy to implement that can immediately help group Zoom calls go up in engagement for you and create a better experience for your audience while also making it more likely for them to take the next step with you. Whether that's a client-based audience taking the next step in receiving your leadership and taking action on it, or a prospective audience and taking the next step to buy your program. Here are 3 things that you can do to engage these audiences. Number 1, greet people by name. So you might be running group Zoom calls in webinar format where you don't know anyone, or maybe in your group coaching program. Either way, if it's a group call, I want to greet every single person by name when they come into the call. This might seem kind of crazy, especially as the numbers get bigger, but I encourage you to continue to do it for as long as it's feasibly possible to greet everybody by name. And if at some point your group calls are so big you can't greet everybody by name, greet as many people as you possibly can by name. There are 3 different group calls I run regularly in my community. I run my sales school group call, which right now I think we typically have been having the last couple of weeks around 20 people in sales school, and I'm greeting every single person when they enter the Zoom. And then I lead my Christian Coaches Academy, which is our membership community where we do a weekly prayer and networking call. The sales school is a training call. But in the prayer and networking call for CCA, we normally have 25 to 35 people on Zoom each week, sometimes 40 people. And I still greet every single person by name when they enter the Zoom. And the other kind of call that I hold is a webinar. We oftentimes run a webinar where we're inviting people who we don't yet know and some clients who we do know come into it to a free training where we then can invite them to join us in sales school or in CCA. And in the webinars that we run, we've had anywhere from 5 people to 50 people in the webinar. I still greet everybody by name. And so when people are coming in, as I have a waiting room set up in my Zoom, I highly recommend for all group calls, you have a waiting room in your Zoom. And just in general, I like a waiting room. When I accept and let everybody in from the waiting room, I'm going to immediately start greeting people. I'm going to be like, hey, John, good to see you today. Hi, Susan. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Joni, thank you for being here. Good morning to Bill. It's good to see you. Hi, John. Oh, there's Malcolm. Hey, Malcolm. Good to see you again. And even if I've never met anybody before, I'm greeting them like a friend. Like, hey, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm happy that you're here. Welcome. And I'm just giving greetings and saying everybody's names. This allows people, especially in an audience where they don't know you, like a webinar or a training that you're running online, this allows your audience to stop feeling anonymous and start feeling seen. I think one of the reasons why people don't convert in a cold webinar is because they're anonymous. And when they're anonymous, they pay less attention. They engage at a lower level. If we can get people to feel seen and feel part of community and begin to feel like they're building a relationship with you, even in a bigger group setting, that makes it so much easier for them to trust you and want to take the next step and for them to be present and all the way there with you. Now, it's the same thing is true in a group program. I want all of my clients to feel seen and valued and cared for by me. I understand it's a group. It's not one-on-one, but I want Joni to know I see her. I want Bill to know, I know that he's entered the room and I care about it. I want to engage all my clients that way. when they show up. I want them to feel seen and loved and cared for by me. Even if it's just for 3 seconds, I think it makes a difference. And what I'll actually do is I'll greet everybody and then I'll begin the call. And as people join late on the call, I continue to pause when I have an opportunity and say, hey, I noticed that Joanna has joined the call, and there's Eric. Hey, Eric, good to see you. And thank you for being here, Marissa. So happy that you're all here today. And then I get back into my topic that I'm teaching on or whatever I'm talking about. Now, if that feels really heavy and hard for you, feel free to just greet people by name when they first enter the room, when it's a big group at the opening. And then as people join late, if you're like caught up in your content, just roll with your content. That's okay. But for me, I like to pause and come up for air and just greet the new people who've joined. This is easier to do when you have 2 screens. So if you don't have this yet, a little Zoom Office upgrade recommendation that isn't for everybody, but you'll know if you're ready for it, is to get a second monitor that you can attach with an HDMI cord and an adapter to your laptop. When I'm running a Zoom call, I've got my laptop in front of me with the Zoom attendees and I can see everybody. And then over here on the next screen, if I've got a slideshow or content or anything I need to be able to see, it's on a separate screen. So it's easy for me to still see the participants, even if I'm screen sharing. I can see what's going on. So greet people by name. This will engage your audience. It will build relationships. I can't tell you how much I have received compliments and appreciation for this and how much people have told me this really stands out and means a lot to them. Okay, the second thing you can do to engage your Zoom participants in a group call is recognize the behaviors that you want. Most specifically for me, I like to recognize people having their video on. Now, in my group programs with my clients, it's common for the vast majority of people to have their video on. So this is less relevant there. Almost everybody comes with their video on to those calls because that's just kind of the standard and the expectation. It's kind of what everyone's doing, and we're friends and we know each other, and there's a culture there. So that's really easy. When somebody's new and they join, they see that everyone has their video on, they just turn their video on. This is more important when you're doing a webinar, masterclass, workshop with people you don't know. Oftentimes people do want to be anonymous. They do want to tune into these classes and listen in the background while they're doing something else, and they don't want to be seen. They don't want to turn their video on. They don't want to engage because it feels a little bit less safe to engage at the next level and have your video on and be seen. But if I'm going to build a relationship with this person, for us to see each other is really helpful and valuable. It also encourages me when I see people's videos on, and allows me to be better because I feel their presence. I feel their energy. And speaking of presence, if my participants' videos are on, they're highly likely to be doing just the one thing, looking at me, especially if they hear me greeting them and saying their name and engaging them throughout the entire presentation or the entire time that we're together in that group call. If they know that they're seen, they're not likely to be looking at their phone. They're not likely to be running an errand. They're not likely to be doing something else. They're likely to be just with me during the time, which means it's going to be more valuable time for them as well. So the way I do this is when I'm saying hello to people and I'm greeting people's names in the beginning, I'm like thanking people for having their video on. I'm like, hey, John, good to see you. Thanks for having your video on. It's great to see your face. There's Susan. Hey, Susan, it's good to see you. And then I might say, and it looks like we've got Taryn, and we've got John, and we've got Sharon with videos off joining us as well. Thank you so much for being here. Listen, if you can at some point during the next few minutes turn your video on, I would love to see your faces. It really encourages me to see you, and I know that you'll be more present and get more out of this if your video is on as well. If you can only listen and you can't have your video on, I'm still happy that you're with us. But if you can turn your video on at some point, wow, I'd love to see you and just feel like we're together. So you can hear how I'm rewarding that, but I'm also making it open and okay for somebody to stay on with their video off. So I'm telling them, hey, if you can turn your video on the next few minutes, I'd love to see you. It encourages me and helps me be better to feel like we're really together. And I know it'll help you be present. That said, if you can only listen in, I'm still happy that you're here listening. And then what will happen is if I've got a group and I've like highlighted a people and I've said hello and I've thanked people for having their video on, and then I've like given this little speech about turning your video on, 1 or 2 people will turn their video on. And the moment they do, I'm going to recognize them for that. I'm going to be like, Sharon, awesome. I'm so glad to see your face. I knew you were real, Sharon. Thanks for being here with us. So anybody who hasn't turned their video on yet still hears me like rewarding Sharon verbally for turning her video on. So they feel a little bit more inclined to do so. And this is where, again, for me, I try to keep an eye on everybody while I'm teaching. I know this isn't going to be natural or easy for everyone who's listening. So if you can't do both, it's okay. You also can develop this skill set over time. But I try to kind of keep an eye on everybody. So it might be that Bill turns his video on 3 minutes after I give that call to action. I'm like, hey, Bill, there you are. It's good to see you. And I'm engaging him like that. So, and I might then 1 or 2 more times, especially if people continue to join late, give that call to action. Like, hey, by the way, if you're just joining us, I'd love for you to turn your video on. I'd love to see you and feel like we're really together if it's possible. If you can only listen, that's okay. But I'd love to see your face if you can join us with your video on as well. And then I'm going to continue. So I'll do that 1 time for sure, oftentimes twice or 3 times in a call where I really want to get people's video on. The other kind of behavior I'll recognize is I'll just recognize like a really attentive listener who I can see who has their video on. So if I'm teaching a webinar to people I don't know, I'm going to use somebody as an example when I'm telling stories. When I'm telling stories and examples and things like that, I'm going to use a person's name. So if I'm teaching about like how to, design your short game marketing strategies, I'm like, listen, like Sabrina is going to have a different short game strategy than John is going to have because they're different people. By the way, Sabrina, I just have to give you a compliment. I love the way you're showing up. Thank you for like head nodding and smiling. You're really encouraging me. It just feels like you're getting what I'm talking about. Thank you so much for engaging with me in that way. It feels really good to be with you. And then I'm going to go on with my content. Now, other people are going to hear me recognizing and rewarding the head nods, the engagement, the smiles, and like noticing that she's really getting it. I'll do the same thing with people engaging in the chat. Like I'll just thank them for their engagement. But if I recognize the behaviors I want to see more of, then I'm going to see more of them. This is true in my client community. This is true in my prospect community. And then the third thing that we can do to engage participants on Zoom is direct the chat. Direct the chat. I like to have people commenting in the chat when I'm leading a Zoom call, especially with prospects who I don't yet have a relationship with. Because again, I don't want them to be anonymous. I want them to feel seen. And this gives me a chance to engage with them. It gives me a chance to call them to presence. It gives me a chance to make sure that they're paying close attention when I ask them to engage in the chat. So I'm going to be saying their names throughout the presentation whenever I can. And I'm going to be inviting them to engage in the chat. So I might be teaching something, like let's say in a webinar. I could be doing this in sales school as well, but I do this very often in a webinar, very intentionally, with people I don't yet know or have that relationship with. I'm going to engage them by like, if I'm teaching about sales and the importance of sales, I might say like, listen, if you know that sales is the most important thing to your success financially in your business, even if you've been avoiding that for a while, if you know it's true that you need to master sales to have success and have the impact that God has called you to, put sales in the chat. Okay, cool. Bill says sales. Sabrina says sales. Cornelia says sales. John says sales. Johnny Juan says sales. Awesome. Okay, good. You guys are with me on this. That's important. And this gives me a chance to engage their name, tell them that I see them again, and they're typing sales into the chat. So they're connecting with me. They're processing the information in a new way. So there can be simple calls like that. When my business was new, I had a goal and I needed to earn $60,000 in my business, or I was going to go out of business that first year. If you've got a financial need, just like I do, type need in the chat, just so I know that like I'm not alone, that some of you are relying on your coaching income. Put need in the chat. Okay, cool. I see that John has a financial need. Bill has a need. Sabrina has a need. And I'm going through these names, right? And like I'm engaging them again there. So you can see how I'll do that with a single word. But then you can also do it in a more open format where you invite people to share. So if I'm teaching people about, being in a peak emotional state going into a sales call, one of the things I teach people is to know what are the 3 emotions you feel when you're at your absolute best For me, when I'm at my best, I feel confident, loving, and peaceful. And when I'm confident, loving, and peaceful going into a sales call, a speaking engagement, or anything else, I do so much better. So I might ask people, consider for a moment, what are the 3 emotions you feel when you're at your very best? Go ahead and write them down. And actually, if you're willing, share them in the chat right now. Share in the chat. I want to hear from some of you. What are the 1, 2, or 3 emotions you feel when you're at your very best? Okay, Steve says he feels competent and confident. I love that, Steve. Cool. Sabrina says she feels joyful, playful, and caring. Okay, great. I love that, Sabrina. That sounds like a great state to be in. Okay, looks like Tommy is saying that he feels powerful, strong, and level-headed when he's at his best. Awesome, Tommy. That's great. And I'm going to boom, boom, boom. I'm going to read the chat and speak what they're writing. Again, I'm recognizing the behaviors I want, and I'm greeting them by name again, and I'm directing the chat. This is all in one when we do this really well. And so this is going to have people feeling more connected to you. It's going to have people feeling more connected to the content. It's going to interrupt their pattern if they start falling asleep, because they're going to recognize that they need to pay attention to be able to keep up with the chat and continue to show up and engage in community here. So these are really great ways to keep your participants engaged in Zoom calls. I'll give you one more bonus, which is for your actual client calls. Sometimes in a webinar, you're going to do a lot of the teaching, a lot of the talking, right? They're going to engage in the chat, ideally by your direction. But on your client calls, facilitate discussion. Facilitate discussion, ask questions, give people a chance to share and unmute and engage in that way. And with bigger group calls, consider having people in small groups, do breakout sessions, use that feature, ask a question at the end of your content, let people jump into a breakout room and answer those questions. This is what we do in our Christian Coaches Academy. We kind of divide these strategies between different calls in our community. But with Christian Coaches Academy, every week we ask 3 questions. We give people a couple minutes to journal. And we put them in breakout rooms of 3 or 4 so that they get to process the questions together. Everyone's voice is used and heard and received. And of course, then they're going to be more engaged with us because they didn't just listen, but they got to speak as well. They got to process the ideas for themselves and be seen by others. So that's a bonus tip. But the 3 things that can engage your prospects and your clients in group Zoom calls are: 1, to greet people by name at the beginning of the call and throughout the call. Number 2, recognize the behaviors you want, especially turning video on. And number 3, direct the chat with your voice. Call people to put words in the chat or to respond in the chat, and then recognize them when they do. These 3 things are going to really help when you're working with your actual clients. Consider utilizing breakout rooms, asking questions, engaging people's voices and opinions, and helping them actually process the things that they're learning. I hope this has been helpful. God bless you all. I really appreciate you being here with us and being part of our community. If you're interested in receiving more content, more ideas like this, make sure that you follow us on social media. You can find me and you can find Faith to Influence on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn. I'd love to engage with you in all the different places where we're going to continue to share high value content like this. God bless you. I look forward to talking to you more soon. Cheers.